So, with the summer break rolling around, I started to read more, and I have recently finished reading an essay written by Alija Izetbegovic, the first president of uh, Bosnia and Herzegovina. And this book, our essay, is Islamic Declaration, released in 1970. It was an essay written by him where he essentially tackled the topic of Islam in the modern world in a very political way, as in how Islamic societies could progress, catch up with sort of Western powers, and what it would mean to be an Islamic state in the modern world. Now, this book was something that actually landed Izetbegovic in jail for about, I believe, 14 years. Um, and though he only served 7 of those years. The essay, in summary, is a synthesis of different development ideas that have been proposed by Muslim thinkers. In fact, that's exactly what Alija Izetbegovic states the essay is. Quote, "From this point of view, the ideas contained in the declaration are not absolutely new. This is rather a synthesis of ideas, heard with increasing frequency in various places, and which are accorded about the same importance in all parts of the Muslim world. Its novelty lies in that it seeks to promote ideas and plans into organized action." If you're familiar with other prominent Islamic thinkers of specifically the contemporary era, like like Iqbal, I had to think about that for a second. You would see a lot of parallels, or maybe not necessarily a lot of parallels, but a fair few parallels between Iqbal and what is seen in this text. In Iqbal's The Reconstruction of Religious Thought in Islam, he deals he deals more so with the establishment of an Islamic polity and an intelligentsia, and the ways in which education is very important within an Islamic society. And that's also something that Izetbegovic tackles. So the essay states various proposals and dissects their own importance and the ways in which they are to be implemented so as to create a larger scheme, so to speak. So that's the novelty. It's organized action. He stressed the importance of Islam existing across the daily life of the everyday person as it has done so in the past. It's an ever-pervading thing that every individual person experiences and informs the very character of an individual. Essentially, he arguing that to have an Islamic state, one needs an Islamic society and vice versa. When there's an Islamic state without an Islamic society, it's despotic. It's a totalitarian regime, so to speak. And when there's an Islamic society without an Islamic state, it becomes a state that is unrepresentative and is at conflict with its people. Hold on to that thought, deals there's a significant overarching argument that he presents that I will discuss in a bit. So a lot of the essay discusses the way in which an Islamic society can be bought up, more so than an Islamic state, due to his belief that in our current situation, the Muslim world is in need of heavy bottom reform. So instead of very strongly believing in a bottom-up reform as opposed to top-down. So he argued for religious renewal and social upheaval, social change. So I feel this need for social and religious renewal is very strongly represented in the following paragraph. So it goes as follows. What was the position of the Quran at the time preceding the age of stagnation and retreat? Devotion to the book did not cease, but it lost its active character while retaining what was irrational and mystic. The Quran lost its authority as law while gaining its sanctity as an object. In study and interpretation, wisdom yielded to hair-splitting, essence to form, and grandeur of thought to the skill of recitation. Under the constant influence of theological formalism, the Quran was read less and learned, recited more, while commandments on struggle, uprightness, personal and material sacrifice, harsh and repellent to our inertia, dissolved and vanished into the pleasant sounds of the Quranic text, learnt off by heart. This unnatural state of affairs came to be accepted as the norm. because it suited an even more numerous group of Muslims who could neither break with the Quran nor summon the strength to order their lives around according to its dictates. A key issue for Izetbegovic was the complacency and lack of action by Muslims, which this text highlights, but also connects to a very keen insight by him, which connects quite well to this idea of Islamic society needing a Islamic regime, and Islamic state, and Islamic state needing an Islamic society. The dilemma between this is the dilemma between the theologian and the modernist. The theologian can be summarized with that text I just quoted, which is an individual who preaches Islam as a personal matter. The theologian is someone who presents Islam as that is quiet, that is important to every aspect of a person's life, and yet cannot inform the institutions that govern the people. That's one part of it. Then the other part is the theologian is also one who is backwards and regressive, ignoring Islam's history for being an unchanging set of ideas which influence actions in an ever-changing world, instead believing Islam to be an unchanging set of actions. A really good example of this is the Ottoman Empire's ban on the printing press, which was done on religious grounds. This would be an example of the theologian getting in the way of Islamic development, not because of their sort of backwardness and very rigidity, viewing Islam as a very, to toot my own home, very eloquently put it, oh yeah, whoops, it took me a second to realize it. Believing Islam to be an unchanging set of actions, as opposed to being an unchanging set of ideas which then inform the actions. So by viewing it as a set of actions, it leads to stagnation and lack of development. So the act of the printing press is you're taking from the kuffar. It's you're attempting to be like them, so it's un-Islamic. That's what that kind of logic would be, which that would prohibit the printing press in the Islamic in an Islamic state like the Ottoman Empire. So that's an example of it, that or a line of reasoning that a theologian would go through. Then there's similarly the modernist. Similarly, the modernist is typically of the upper class, foreign educated type who, upon seeing the outside world, rejects all that is Islamic in exchange for, to quote what Izetbegovic says, alien ideas. In essence, a modernist seeks to change the Muslim people into those who aren't Muslims, so as to allow us to modernize, but they fail to realize that forcing, as he calls them, alien ideas upon a population leads to societal instability and decay, and doesn't actually address what makes Western societies developed. He gives a parallel of taking the ingenuity and institutions of the West, not their alcohol and nightclubs. There's also a really interesting comparison he makes between Japan and Turkey. Ataturk attempted to radically shift the very culture of Turkish society into being more very Western European, which meant being very against the Islamic nature of Ottoman society at the time, which was still very Islamic even with the rise of Turkish nationalism, which comparatively was not very Islamic. This led to the state being in his words, being a very middling economy, not necessarily developing the ways it should have. Which is then he uses the example of Japan. End of the Second World War, Japan saw rapid growth economically and a large amount of prosperity, and it retained a very strong cultural identity. So Japanese development did not come at the cost of its own cultural identity. It did not attempt to mimic what was alien. It's instead attempting to use but they took what functioned with these other states. So things like the free market, investment into different sectors of the economy, and so on and so forth. Taking that and then using it to develop the state, but not taking the cultural elements from the West. So that's sort of what it is. So this is a fairly brief look at Alija Izetbegovic's Islamic Declaration and its purpose And the purpose of this was to highlight the general message and attitude of the text. There's more than that needs to be said. There's more that is said in the 78 pages of this essay, which can't really fit into this hopefully less than 10-minute video. Okay, 15-minute video. So as I mentioned, I will be doing a more in-depth video of the book, discussing hopefully all of its important ideas and sharing some analysis by me, my own opinions, on thoughts that would also be kind of off the cuff, especially like how I think this applies to our world today, how Muslim societies can develop here on using those very ideas and ideals. So yeah, cheers.